Marketing Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is Mary Gilmore. And we are going to start with the race is on to save the dying Great Salt Lake. The ecosystem is on life support. We're on the edge of ecological collapse. Winter's disastrously low snowfall could further complicate an already audacious plan to refill the dying Great Salt Lake in time for the 2034 Winter Olympics in Utah. The plan pushed by Utah officials and Olympic supporters received a major boost when Donald Trump proposed $1 billion in federal assistance to acquire more water and address environmental concerns. The lake has been shrinking for decades as farmers divert melting snow and rain onto fields to grow crops, including alfalfa for cattle. Boosters remain optimistic the coalition they've assembled can reverse the long-term declines in time for the lake to reflect the Olympics flame for the world. I'm fully convinced we're going to fix this. This is a fixable problem, said Josh Romney, a Utah businessman and son of former Senator Mitt Romney, the 2012 Republican presidential candidate. Josh Romney said saving the lake may cost as much as $5 billion and require about 260 billion gallons of water, roughly the same amount used by residents and businesses in New York City for over 9 months. Water levels have always fluctuated in the Great Salt Lake, but in 2022 the levels fell to their lowest in recorded history. And while they have rebounded slightly since then, ecologists, climate experts, and the lake supporters say long-term trends are grim because of water use and climate change. In addition to its iconic role in helping define Salt Lake City, the lake is a popular recreation destination and a crucial wildlife habitat for migrating birds. It's also home to a flourishing fishing industry in which workers scoop up vast quantities of microscopic brine shrimp sold internationally as fish food. The ecosystem is on life support. We're on the edge of an ecological collapse as well as an economic and hydrological collapse with the lake. And that is because of local water overuse in Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming, said Ben Abbott, a professor of ecology at Brigham Young University and executive director of Grow the Flow, a water policy nonprofit. About 80% of the lake's decline is caused by water overuse. The remaining portion can be blamed on climate change and drought, Abbott said. Abbott and other lake experts said this year's poor snowfall won't help their efforts. Climate change is altering weather patterns around the West, warming temperatures, increasing evaporation, and reducing the snowpack. Why is the lake drying up? Although climate change contributes to the lake's depletion, Abbott and other experts say agricultural use is the single largest factor. Another is population growth. The suburbs along Salt Lake City are among the fastest growing in the country, and Utah is growing much faster than the rest of the nation. From 2024 to 2025, according to the Census Bureau, Utah's population grew by 1%, more than Arizona or Nevada, which makes it the 5th fastest growing state that year. All those new residents, particularly the lush green lawns many grow in the desert-like climate, are consuming water that would ordinarily flow into the Great Salt Lake. Farmers growing alfalfa for cattle and horses are primary drivers of water use. However, and when it comes to persuading farmers to help recharge the Great Salt Lake, Romney said it's important that everything be voluntary. It's not the same as encouraging people with big lawns to turn down their water, he said. When you have that conversation with farmers, it's their livelihood, not just affecting the color of their lawn, but how much money they are able to bring home for their families. The goal would be to provide opportunities for farmers to grow crops in a way that reduces water use while realizing economic benefits, he said. There are a lot of solutions out there that reduce water while maintaining crop yield. He sees massive opportunities on the residential side just by getting people to stop overwatering their lawns. Even if people just watered what the lawn needs and not what they think it needs, the region could achieve 200,000 acre-feet of water savings a year, he said, or about 65 billion gallons. The West's water problem. Most of the West saw historically poor snowfall over the winter, which has significant implications for residents and businesses that depend on the melting snow for irrigation each summer. But because the water that eventually ends up in the Great Salt Lake itself is too salty for drinking or irrigation, water managers won't be drawing it down the way they will with other lakes and reservoirs, such as Lake Powell in southern Utah. The low snowfall in the valleys around the Great Salt Lake are symptoms of its chronically low water levels, Abbott said. Part of the reason why we had such a bad snow year this year is because the lake is so small that we don't have as much water vapor coming from the lake to support our snow. In 1986, when the lake was at a record high, it covered about 2,300 square miles, the U.S. Geological Survey says. In 2022, it covered less than 1,000 square miles. Restoring the lake would increase the rain and snow, Abbott said. Winter's low snow could have a short-term impact on how much water flows into the lake, but it's so big that it can deal with one or even a number of drought years, he said. What it can't deal with is that we've diverted that water year after year after year over a century. Salty water is good and bad. Because the lake doesn't have an outlet, water flowing in eventually evaporates, leaving large minerals, salt, and other substances. Those deposits make the lake saltier than when it holds less water and could create a toxic environment for birds and fish. But salty is a perfect environment for brine shrimp, those tiny little creatures sold as sea monkeys. Harvesting brine shrimp eggs for commercial fish food supports thousands of jobs and provides more than $1.5 billion a year in revenue. State officials say half of all farmed fish worldwide are raised on Utah harvested brine shrimp eggs. But deposits left behind when the lake levels drop and the lake bed dries out contribute to air pollution. Last year, Salt Lake City, Provo, Orem metro areas ranked 25th worst in the nation for short-term particle pollution, the American Lung Association said. Our lake, our heritage. Utah Governor Spencer Cox announced a plan in fall 2025 to top up the lake ahead of the Winter Olympics. The Great Salt Lake is our lake, our heritage, our responsibility, he said at the time, announcing that $200 million in private donations had already been pledged to help. Romney said he's optimistic businesses, residents, and the government can work together to save the lake. One of the coalition's first big steps was to help the state buy the defunct U.S. magnesium plant along the shore, keeping 3.25 billion gallons of water in the lake. Supporters are encouraged by a building sense of unity that they see in Utah to address the lake's crisis. State legislators recently approved 3 bills to help the lake. Romney and Abbott said leaders of the state's predominant religion, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, have taken steps to promote the lake's restoration. The Great Salt Lake is the largest saline lake in the northern hemisphere and the world's 8th largest, said Hannah Fries, Deputy Commissioner of the Great Salt Lake. The Commissioner's Office coordinates lake improvement among the nonprofits, development community, and governments. The lake is of hemispheric importance, Fries said. It's just a huge driver for our economy, our hydrology, and the way we live here in Utah. Trump's rescue plan. Federal officials have not offered more specifics on how Trump's $1 billion plan would work, instead referring reporters to a 4-sentence statement in the White House budget proposal that notes any restoration would require a comprehensive federal approach. The funding also needs Congress's approval. The president himself on March 10th declared that only Trump can save the Great Salt Lake, which he said would be out of water in a short period of time unless he stepped in. Together, these investments would ensure the Great Salt Lake continues to support global aquaculture, serves as a domestic source of critical minerals, and drives economy activity in Utah and beyond, Trump's budget says. Fries, the Deputy Lake Commissioner, called Trump's support wildly significant. Lynn DeFreitas, Executive Director of Friends of Great Salt Lake, said she's glad to see decades of work paying off. The nonprofit has been working for more than 30 years to address the consequences that have caused the lake's dramatic rise and fall. Today, the lake's depth averages about 33 feet, but it can spread out over a larger area with even a little rain, like batter poured into a cake pan, DeFreitas said. She's waiting to hear what specifics the president's plan will fund, from possible changes to the railway causeway that essentially cuts the lake in half, to measures limiting how much sediment flows in. She said that at this point, any and all help is welcome. It's very good news to hear. I think there will be a recognition that the West is going through some very heavy times. ICE detention at 6-month low, data states. Reasons complex, hard to pinpoint, experts say. Immigration detention numbers have fallen to their lowest point since last fall, according to newly released data published with a long delay that the Department of Homeland Security attributed to a partial government shutdown amid funding negotiations. The data, released by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement on April 9th, offers a glimpse into the agency's enforcement operations at a time of heightened public pressure after the fatal shootings of 2 U.S. citizens, a leadership shakeup, and a growing string of court losses. Experts said it's still too early to say whether the changes will hold, but pointed to a few possible explanations behind the early April drop. According to ICE data, the number of detainees climbed to a historic high since President Donald Trump took office in 2025. Even with the decline, it is still significantly higher than at any point in the Biden administration. Trump campaigned for his second term with the promise of mass deportation, but that came with serious logistic challenges. As the number of people booked into detention each month climbed, the number of people removed did not keep the same pace, leading to more people held in the system. The surge in people detained in immigration arrest was largely driven by more people who don't have a criminal record, according to ICE data analyzed by USA Today. The April 9th release shows a drop in that population, but it remains the biggest group. Experts noted an increase in court cases that challenge whether detainees received due process. There could be an effort by ICE to release some people ahead of challenges to avoid having to adjust policies on a more permanent basis from these rulings, experts say. There's a question of whether they're getting the most bang for their buck because they're spending a lot to detain people who are not easily removable. so it could reflect a shift in focus, said David Beer, Director of Immigration Studies at the Cato Institute. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. The latest detention data from ICE shows that at the start of the fiscal year in October, there were 46 court-ordered releases. That number jumped to 1,005 by March, the latest complete month. If they don't have the resources to defend what they're doing and defend locking people up, they're going to have to release them or not bring them in the first place, Beer said. In a statement to USA Today, the Department of Homeland Security said nearly 70% of ICE arrests are of immigrants charged with or convicted of crime in the United States. But the agency's own data tells a more complex story. As of April 4th, 32% of the detainees from the ICE arrest had a criminal conviction. 33 had pending charges, and 35%, the largest single group, had no criminal record. DHS also said that more than 3 million immigrants are out of the country. The agency has included in its tally more than 2 million people who it said had self-deported. A CNN report in March found that DHS internal documents showed the number was closer to 72,000. The overall detention drop also coincides with changes in immigration leadership after 2 American citizens were shot and killed in clashes in Minneapolis. After mounting backlash, U.S. Border Patrol Chief Greg Bavino, who also oversaw operations in Chicago, took a step back as White House border czar Tom Homan was sent to Minnesota, where he later announced scaled down in operations. I think that in the attention by the public to put more pressure to have a more targeted approach, said Ariel Ruiz Soto, a senior policy analyst at the Migration Policy Institute. Ruiz Soto added that more time is needed to see whether the trend will continue. If in a couple months from now we're seeing that this decline continues into May or June, the early summer, then we have potential to see this as a defining moment in the administration's immigration enforcement. ICE has plenty of money. ICE has been in partial shutdown as budget negotiations extend for 2 months. Though the agency still has a significant amount of funding, during Trump's signature funding bill in 2025, the agency received nearly $75 billion, money it has used to hire more personnel and expand its detention facility infrastructure. I think it's more of the optics and the way that the tactics change, and not so much that there isn't the capacity for them to detain or arrest more people, Ruiz Soto said. Even though DHS is not publishing the entire cache of data that the previous administration did, these limited data sets still help immigration researchers, lawyers, and advocates track immigration enforcement insights, such as who is targeted and how many are in detention. So far in 2026, it has taken ICE an average of 27 days to update detention data, according to a USA Today analysis. Congress requires it to publish the data every 2 weeks, though it is unclear where the mandate stands during a government shutdown. Still, Ruiz Soto said that slower and more inconsistent data releases make it hard to pinpoint the effects of changes in policy or in administrations and leadership. Attributing, for example, a judge's order to decrease in a particular week could have been helpful, Ruiz Soto said. Now, the best we can do is monthly averages, but they wouldn't be able to be specific to the timeline of different policy decisions. Swalwell exit may lift other hopefuls. California Dems may get boost in governor's race. Former U.S. Republican Eric Swalwell's sudden exit from the California governor's race due to sexual assault and harassment allegations may seem like bad news for Democrats, but it comes with a significant silver lining, a reduced risk that only Republicans will emerge from the state's June 2nd nonpartisan primary. Due to the Golden State's unusual election system, in which the top two finishers, regardless of party, advance to the November general election, liberal voters have been split between 8 candidates, while Republicans have focused on 2 contenders, former Fox News host Steve Hilton and Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. As a result, some polls showed Hilton and Bianco leading the field in the overwhelmingly Democratic state. The same polls, such as one released on March 18th by the University of California, Berkeley, has Swalwell in third. If his supporters are now redistributed among the left side of the field, the 2 progressive challengers who trailed him by just a few percentage points, billionaire environmentalist Tom Steyer and former U.S. Republican Katie Porter, will stand a better chance of advancing past the primary. I think the rapid bottoming out for Swalwell does fundamentally shake up the race, said David McEwen, a veteran political science professor at Sonoma State University. He was gaining traction. The momentum was going in his favor, and then he was hit by a tsunami. Now every candidate may get an advantage from Swalwell's downfall, he added. Facing possible expulsion from Congress, Swalwell resigned from his seat on April 13th after 7 terms in the House. His exit from the governor's race a day earlier also provides an opening for candidates mired in single digits, political observers say, such as former U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra, San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan, and former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villagrosa. Former San Francisco Mayor and California State Speaker Willie Brown told USA Today that those 3 candidates in Steyer could raise due to Swalwell's fall in such a wide-open race. These 4 present strong options for consideration, Brown said. Swalwell suspended his gubernatorial campaign on April 12th after the San Francisco Chronicle published allegations of sexual assault from a former staffer, and CNN followed up with the same source and 3 other women who alleged other forms of sexual misconduct. The former aide accused Swalwell of raping her while she was heavily intoxicated, leaving her bruised and bleeding after the encounter. Swalwell vehemently denies the assault claims but admits to making other unspecified mistakes. This led to an onslaught from top congressional Democrats, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senator Adam Schiff, both of California, denouncing Swalwell. Schiff had previously endorsed Swalwell's gubernatorial candidacy. Unions and other progressive organizations also withdrew their endorsements. It's been one of the fastest candidate declines I've ever seen, said Brian Sobel, a veteran San Francisco Bay Area-based political communications and strategy consultant. Swalwell, 45, was first elected to Congress in 2012, representing a Northern California district just outside Oakland, where he was a prosecutor in Alameda County. He was a long-shot candidate in the 2022 Democratic presidential primaries, such as seen as a charismatic gubernatorial figure before dropping out and endorsing the eventual winner, Joe Biden. Brown speculated that opposing candidates in both parties knew about Swalwell's alleged misconduct, but only Democrats wanted it to come out before the primary. I bet you the Republicans knew, but somebody else moved too soon, Brown said. They were going to wait and try to steal the governor's race at the 11th hour. California Democratic Party Chair Rusty Hicks said in an April 12th statement that Swalwell had finally done the right thing by ending his campaign, but noted his name will still appear when ballots are mailed next month. I ask all of you who care for the future of California to join me in ensuring all voters that he is unfit for public office and receives as little support as possible at the ballot box, Hicks said. Swalwell's rivals pounce on exit. Most public polls released in California's governor's race shows Swalwell, Porter, and Steyer as the only Democratic contenders garnering double-digit percentages. An April 8th poll commissioned by two groups supporting Swalwell found Hilton at the top with 22%, followed by Swalwell at 18%, Bianco at 13%, Steyer at 12%, and Porter at 11%. All of the other candidates remain on or below 5%, the surveys found. The Porter campaign shared an internal poll from February with USA Today this week, showing 46% of Swalwell supporters said the former Congresswoman with their second choice, versus 14% who favored Steyer, who had spent about $112 million of his own money on the race. Katie has consistently stood at the top of the field since day one, without yet spending a dime on paid advertising, and as the only candidate to never take a cent from corporate PACs, Peter Ortiz, a Porter campaign spokesperson, said in a statement. She's gone toe-to-toe with Donald Trump and won, he added. While billionaires try to buy this election, Katie has one focus: making California more affordable for working families. In a statement, Steyer bypassed the political ramifications of Swalwell's exit and instead commended the brave former staffer and other women for stepping forward. They were failed by a political system designed to silence victims and protect power, Steyer said. Other Democrats vying to succeed Governor Gavin Newsom, who is term limited, see this as a chance to reset the narrative. In an April 12th post on X, for instance, Becerra, a former California Attorney General, pointed out his record in handling sexual assault cases. He went on the next day to showcase support from California officials, saying, "No candidate has fought to protect the state against the Trump administration the way he has." The lesser-known candidates, such as Betty Yee, a former state controller who has been polling at around 1%, the shakeup gives voters a chance to think twice about their choices. She said many candidates at the top of the polls haven't been properly vetted compared to previous statewide office holders, such as herself. This should give voters at least some comfort that those of us who have been around, you know what we have, she said. I have no skeletons in my closet. Porter has faced scrutiny in her personal life after details of her divorce went public. She was accused of being verbally and physically abusive by her ex-husband, who, in 2013 court filing, claimed she dumped a pot of boiling potatoes on his head. Porter denied those claims, which resurfaced during her failed U.S. Senate bid in 2024. Yee told USA Today that a candidate's character matters and highlighted past incidents in which Porter berated the press and her staffers as something voters need to think twice about when choosing their next governor. I just question whether she's got the right temperament to govern under stress. There's a lot of stresses being the governor of California, she said. Mahan, San Jose's mayor, echoed those concerns when speaking briefly with USA Today this week. He said the race is now wide open and that the character question will be at the forefront going forward. I am concerned about other choices in this race. A billionaire who made his fortune funding private prisons and ICE detention centers, a former congresswoman who has serious allegations of verbally abusing her staff, Mahon said in an interview. The Porter campaign did not immediately provide a response. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes past the hour. Now moving on to 50 states. Alabama, Tuscaloosa. A long-in-the-making expansion of wooden train trestles over Jack Warner Parkway as it turns into Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard gathered steam April 7th when the city's Projects Committee approved a $43.9 million outlay. Alaska, Juneau. Huna Totem Corporation and the city and borough of Juneau have finalized a Thailand's release for a fifth downtown cruise ship dock, clearing the way for construction to begin next summer and an expected opening for the 2028 season, KTOO reported. Arizona, Apache County. The Apache County Board of Supervisors has approved the use of voting centers in place of designated polling places, a move that could address some of the issues that left hundreds of people standing in line or unable to vote during the 2024 general election. Arkansas, Sherwood. Members of the Sons and Daughters of the American Revolution dedicated a new Liberty Tree at the Arkansas State Veterans Cemetery as part of a nationwide effort celebrating America's 250th anniversary, KATV reported. California, Los Angeles. Starting May 4th, travelers along California's Central Coast will have another daily option to get between Los Angeles and San Luis Obispo. The Pacific Surfliner will expand service to include 6 daily trips to Goleta and 3 daily trips to San Obispo, a move that Amtrak said will improve weekday commuter flexibility and regional connectivity between Los Angeles, Ventura County, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo. Colorado, Greenlee. IBS employees ratified a 2-year labor agreement with the world's largest meat packer after a 3-week strike disrupted operations at a massive beef-producing plant in Greenlee, the company and union representing the workers said. Connecticut, North Haven. In North Haven and Stratford, the warning periods for drivers illegally passing school buses ended as both towns shifted from mailed warnings to $250 citations after installing stop arm cameras systems, WTNH reported. Delaware, Dover. Leadership in all 4 caucuses of the General Assembly introduced a bill April 9th to formally establish Delaware's Economic and Financial Advisory Council. District of Columbia, Washington. Police said a car that had amassed nearly 900 unpaid tickets, totaling more than $260,000, was impounded, DC News now reported. Florida, Ocala. A new location for the popular Texas-based mega travel center Buc-ee's planned for Ocala, scheduled for a 2028 opening, is now showing a proposed opening date of 2029, according to the company's contact page. Buc-ee's, I've heard of Buc-ee's. It's supposed to be quite amazing. Georgia, Augusta. A private jet company anticipates so many flights to the 2027 Masters tournament that it's building its own terminal at Augusta Regional Airport. The terminal still is being built, but for now, NetJets has completed the private ramp with 432,000 square feet of aircraft parking for its customers. Hawaii, Honolulu. State transportation officials said a single-lane closure along Kamehameha Highway near Waimea Bay will remain in place for the next 3 to 4 months after recent landslides and rock falls, KHON2 reported. Idaho, Boise. The Greater Boise Auditorium District said it has purchased a 4-acre lot, signaling a major expansion for the Boise Center, the state's largest convention center, the Idaho Press reported. Illinois, Rockford. As Rockford area officials contemplate the pros and cons of a potential data center, the property taxes it could pay to local taxing bodies might tip the scale. A Meta DeKalb data center is generating tens of millions a year in property taxes and is being credited with helping drive down property tax rates. Indianapolis. Sheetz is expanding to the state with plans to build 100 stores in Indiana over the next 10 years. The Indiana developments represent about $1 billion in investment and will create more than 3,000 long-term jobs. Iowa, Ames. The city has broken ground on its $18 million new solid waste disposal and recycling facility. Kansas, Topeka. A new state law pushed by Topekans is intended to help prevent Kansans, especially seniors, from being targeted by cryptocurrency scams. Governor Laura Kelly signed House Bill 2591 into law on April 9th after it unanimously passed the legislature on March 26th. Kentucky, Frankfort. Calling the case against her frivolous, the Kentucky Supreme Court has called on state Senate to dismiss a pending impeachment trial for Fayette Circuit Judge Julie Muth Goodman, arguing the petition filed against her in January should have been dismissed before it reached the House floor. Louisiana, Lafayette. A judge made a ruling on a request for a temporary restraining order to halt the closure of Ove Camus High School on April 13th. After postponing the ruling in March to allow the Lafayette Parish school system to proceed with plans to repurpose the campus, despite a pending lawsuit, a Lafayette judge issued a preliminary injunction prohibiting the Lafayette Parish school system from moving forward with closing Camus High until further notice. Maine, Portland. The Maine Community Bank Maine Marathon said 4 nonprofits, Camp No Limits, Day One, Nana's House, and Pine Tree Society, will split $65,700 in proceeds from the 2026 race, WMTW reported. Maryland, Thurmont. Ketosin Mountain Park has confirmed its first cases of chronic wasting disease in white-tailed deer. The cases were identified during recent deer reduction operations and follow-up disease sampling, according to a community announcement. Massachusetts, Nantucket. Vineyard Wind 1 is at the center of a legal disagreement as it asked a judge to step in quickly to keep GE Renewables, a key contractor, from walking away just as the 806 megawatt project off of the shores of Nantucket and Martha Vineyard is expected to begin full operations. Michigan, Keweenaw County. Nestled in the middle of Lake Superior, the nation's least visited national park will soon welcome back tourists, but getting to the park will take some ingenuity. Island Royal National Park, which closed for the season in November, reopens for 2026 on April 16th, but ferry services don't start running until May, and the island's two lodging operations won't open until early June and don't have much availability when they do open. Minnesota, St. Paul. After local governments secretly approved data centers projects across Minnesota, Republicans and Democrats in the legislature have rallied behind a bill that would prohibit local government officials from signing non-disclosure agreements with the corporate giants demanding them, Minnesota Reformer reported. Mississippi, Madison County. Amazon announced another $12 billion investment in Mississippi. The vast majority of the investment will be at the site in Madison County, while another near $1 billion will be for the data center location in Clinton. Missouri, Jefferson City. Missouri House Republicans voted to advance a bill prohibiting thousands of legally present immigrants from receiving federal food assistance, restricting what recipients can buy with those benefits, and excluding most refugees and asylees from Medicaid, Missouri Independent reported. Montana, Missoula. Montana Knife Company opened its new facility on April 11th, KRTV reported. Nebraska, Lincoln. Police said an investigation is underway after a man was scammed out of nearly $160,000 over the course of 7 years, KOLN reported. Nevada, Reno. In a letter sent to campus, University of Nevada, Reno President Brian Sandoval said Donald Easton Brooks, Dean of the College of Education and Human Development, has been placed on administrative leave. It's a very long run-on sentence. New Hampshire, Exeter. The Exeter Area Charitable Foundation has launched a new initiative to combat food insecurity by donating a total of $10,500 to 6 local food banks. New Mexico, Santa Fe. New Mexico State Republican Rebecca Dow announced that she has lost a legal challenge to her re-election campaign's legitimacy and won't appear on the June 2nd primary ballot, Source New Mexico reported. New York, Albany. A state judge invalidated New York environmental laws that would protect over 1 million acres of freshwater wetlands from development, handing a victory to landowners and businesses who say the regulations undermine the governor's push to build more affordable housing. North Carolina, Hendersonville. The city is moving to codify parts of its comprehensive plan, giving design guidelines force of law to preserve and improve downtown's historic, walkable character. North Dakota, Castleton. North Dakota will lead the nation in a U.S. Department of Agriculture push to improve farm technology and research, federal officials announced. North Dakota Monitor reported. U.S. Senator John Hoeven said Grand Farm, a research campus west of Fargo, will be the national program manager for USDA's National Proving Grounds Network for Ag Tech, according to the news outlet. Ohio, Delaware County. Olentangy Local Schools has announced a name for its 18th elementary school, which it broke ground on in late March. Deerhaven Elementary is expected to be ready in August 2027 to open for the 2027-28 school year. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Continuing with 50 states, Oklahoma City. Oklahoma County Sheriff Tommy Johnson III has given the county jail a 30-day notice that he will quit taking detainees to the courthouse for court appearances or anything else. The financially strapped jail has no means of taking them. Oregon, Eugene School District 4J will be short another $16.4 million, but Superintendent Miriam Morales Mickelson said additional staff cuts won't be used to make up the deficit. Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. The Pennsylvania Department of Education Office of Commonwealth Libraries awarded more than $11 million to 27 libraries in 15 counties to improve public library facilities. The grants prioritize public library facility projects that address accessibility, energy efficiency, non-routine maintenance of essential systems, the improvement or restoration of interior public spaces, and the construction of new libraries or building additions, according to a press release. Rhode Island, Providence. Scientists are set to begin a study in May that aims to shed light on how long it takes for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, to build up in the bodies of trout released into ponds and rivers where traces of the chemicals have been found. It's the first study of its kind in Rhode Island. The findings could have important safety implications for recreational fishermen who catch and consume fish stocked by the state. South Carolina, Columbia. Conservative organization Turning Point USA is partnering with the state to expand its organization's reach into state high schools in a move that critics say undermines the neutrality of a public education. South Dakota, Watertown. The Village of Harmony Hill has launched an adult day services program to support older adults and provide respite for caregivers, according to an announcement. The program in the secure memory care neighborhood of Hope Terrace offers a structured day filled with engagement, social connection, and professional care. Tennessee, Nashville. A new state entity to govern the Music City Loop project in Nashville and any future underground transit projects statewide is now set to cost the state just under $900,000 annually after an earlier $4.5 million price tag sparked backlash. Texas, Kerr County. Texas health investigators are looking into complaints filed against Camp Mystic with help from the Texas Rangers, while the health agency also evaluates whether to renew the camp's license to operate this summer, according to state officials, the Texas Tribune reported. Utah, Moab. Officials said a person was rescued and is in critical condition after falling about 80 feet and then tumbling an additional 50 feet in Pritchett Canyon, KSL reported. Vermont, South Burlington. Hubbard Park is going to look less natural in a few months. The park is set for a modest makeover through several construction projects after a sometimes divisive debate on access for people with disabilities, traffic, and leaving nature alone. Virginia, Richmond. In a decision that clarifies property rights across Virginia, the state Supreme Court has ruled that easement holders are not entitled to exclusive control of every inch of a right-of-way unless their access is unreasonably impeded by the owners of the property crossed by the easement. Washington, Olympia. Opponents of Washington's new income tax on high earners filed a lawsuit arguing the controversial law is unconstitutional and in conflict with nearly a century of state Supreme Court precedents, Washington State Standard reported. West Virginia, Charleston. Governor Patrick Morrisey has signed into law Senate Bill 1060, a measure expanding racing incentives, doubling funding for restricted races, and modernizing revenue rules to help revitalize the state's horse racing industry, WDTV reported. Wisconsin, Grand Chute. More than 2,100 new housing units will be needed in Grand Choate by the end of 2035 to meet projected demand, according to a housing study unanimously approved by the town board. The number equates to an average of 195 new owner-occupied and rental units annually. That's far above the average of 109 new housing units annually permitted by the town since 2021. Wyoming, Sheridan County. Sheridan County Commissioners voted to end the county's long unused property tax deferral program after nearly 30 years, leaving Teton County as the only Wyoming county still participating, the Sheridan Press reported. Volkswagen pulls the plug on its lone U.S. electric SUV. Volkswagen is ending production of its ID 4.4 electric crossover SUV built and sold in the United States, the latest sign of the automobile industry's retreat on electric vehicles as customer demand and federal support for the technology recede. The German automaker announced in an April 9th statement that it is wrapping up production of the electric ID.4, which was its best-selling electric car. The company said the decision was made because the EV market continues to challenge the industry, requiring measured decisions throughout the last few years to navigate this unpredictability. As part of the focus toward high-volume products that meet market demand, Volkswagen will no longer assemble the ID.4 in Chattanooga starting mid-April 2026, Volkswagen said in the statement. Model year 2026 ID.4 will remain available to customers in the U.S. throughout current inventory, which we expect will support customer demand into 2027. Volkswagen added that a future version of the ID.4 is currently planned for the North American market. Details will be shared at a later date. The news comes as overall EV sales represented 9.6% of U.S. auto sales in 2025, according to the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. Why is Volkswagen axing the ID.4? Volkswagen said its Chattanooga, Tennessee assembly plant will shift its primary focus to higher volume models that support sustained growth in North America. Central to this effort is the launch of the all-new second-generation Atlas for the model year 2027, which begins production this summer and will be available in dealerships this fall, the company added. Volkswagen said it is committed to its Chattanooga workforce and will explore pathways to improve potential new product intended specifically to meet U.S. consumer needs and in line with the new focus on high-volume vehicles. The Volkswagen ID.4 was first introduced in the 2021 model year. The company sold 22,373 ID.4 vehicles in 2025, according to an annual sales report Volkswagen issued in December. The ID.4 was the only Volkswagen model that saw an increase in sales in 2025. Here's how the ID.4 sold in other years it was available in the United States, according to the Volkswagen's annual sales report. 2024, 17,021. 2023, 37,789. 2022, 20,511. 2021, 16,742. Other automakers are getting rid of their EVs. Ford announced plans to transition its F-150 Lightning pickup from a fully electric vehicle to a hybrid car type known as the Extended Range Electric Vehicle, or EREV. Meanwhile, Honda axed three of the three electric models that it planned to build and sell in the United States. The Japanese automaker announced in a March 12 statement that it ended its plans to produce the electric Honda O SUV, Honda O Saloon, and the Acura RS. Lamborghini also abandoned plans to develop fully electric cars by the end of the decade in favor of building more hybrids. The Italian automaker, a subsidiary of Volkswagen, confirmed to USA Today that they are not following its plan to build battery electric cars by 2030 because of weakening demand in the United States. Also, Tesla is planning to end production of its Model S luxury electric sedan and Model X luxury electric SUV in the spring in favor of building robots, company CEO Elon Musk told investors on Tesla's January meetings call. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Wednesday, March 15th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been Mary Gilmore. Thank you so much.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is David Frothingham. Turning to the sports section today, the main headline reads, "Winning with Purpose. New Memphis coach Charles Huff gets a promotion few get and a responsibility even fewer carry," by John Bryce. Dateline is Memphis. His chair scraping across a concrete floor and piercing the soft murmur of noise inside this Memphis barbecue staple, Charles Huff gathers himself, scoots back, leans forward. On the job little more than 100 days as Memphis Tigers football coach, Huff measures his message. He is the only black head coach from the 2025-26 college football coaching carousel to carry an elevation in role, spending a year at Southern Miss and landing a fringe Power 4 conference type job at Memphis, an American Conference resident with P4 ambitions. Huff embraces he is coaching for more than just his Memphis program, players, and staff. "I bear that cross," Huff told USA Today Sports. "But I know for years, when I was a young coach at Tennessee State coming up in the profession, I would go to AFCA conventions, and back then they had a thing called the BCA, Black Coaches Association, and we would meet on Sunday night. It would be the last meeting of the night. And there were hundreds of African-American minority coaches in a room, and there were head coaches that sat on the panel. I remember Tyrone Willingham was there one time. Charlie Strong was there, and I just remember it being such a gripe session. Quote, we don't get our opportunities. We got to get more opportunities. I just remember James Franklin said, guys, we come in here every year and we complain. And yes, we need to, get more opportunities. But when we do get opportunities, we got to win. Huff is the first minority head football coach at Memphis in 15 years. He reports to Dr. Ed Scott, the school's first black athletic director. Across the major college sports landscape, Virginia has a minority head coach and athletic director. Syracuse will this summer when Brian Blair takes the top athletics chair and has football coach Fran Brown. That's it. That's the list. Scott recalls the tough questions he asked of Memphis leaders and community members once Scott identified Huff as his number one target to replace Ryan Silverfield, who left for the Arkansas job. The first thing I'll say to you is I'm the first African-American AD in the history of Memphis, right? Scott told USA Today Sports. And Memphis President Bill Hardgrave, a Caucasian, a white man, took a chance on me. And I think by all feedback I've got from Hardgrave, he's been really happy and pleased with this decision. And when I was going into this search, I reached out to some prominent people around here and said, look, if we go in the direction of a black head coach and a minority head coach, how's that going to be perceived? So I wanted to know, but I will tell you this. When you work for Carla Williams, University of Virginia Athletic Director, which I am grateful to have the privilege to have done, and you work for the first black woman, African-American woman, to run a P4 department, you hire the best person for the job. And my value is I wanted the best person for the job, end quote. Temperatures push into the 80s on the first day of April, the sixth day of Memphis's spring football camp, and the day Scott also introduces his new women's basketball coach, Hannah Hayden. Now, Scott surveys the fields of Tigers' sprawling football practice complex, which features a 120-yard heated and cooled indoor field, as well as 3 full-size playing surfaces outside. A receiver makes a corner end zone touchdown catch, and Scott is the first to congratulate, quick with a pat on the helmet and an exclamatory expletive. At the end of the search process, Charles Huff was the best person for the job, said Scott, a former college baseball player who previously served as athletic director for HBCU, historically black colleges and universities, school Morgan State. I take pride in this, in that I found what I believe is the best person for the job who happens to be black. In addition to that, if you look at the minority coaches that were hired this cycle, he's the only one who moved up. Franklin, Wright, was the only one who was hired again in the cycle. There were a lot of coaches hired, but none of them looked like me or Charles Huff. And so to be able to give him this opportunity because he earned it, not because he was black, I take pride in that, end quote. In 5 previous seasons as head coach, Huff has 5 bowl berths, a Sun Belt championship, and one of the signature upsets this decade when his Marshall won at Notre Dame in 2022. He is a protege of both Franklin and Nick Saban, serving as Saban's associate coach at Alabama in 2019-2020 before landing his first head coaching post at Marshall. He wins. Huff wants to win more for everyone. Quote, "The only way for me to effectively move the needle is to win," Huff said. "And not only winning on the field, but winning off the field, making the right decisions. I still, to this day, if I drive, I won't even have one drink. You know, I'm making sure that my off-the-field alignment goes with winning, because I know me having success will create opportunities for others. Is it going to happen overnight? No. But I think over time, guys like James Franklin, he's won at a high clip. Tony Elliott now is winning at a high clip. The more we win, the more opportunities come. So the weight I carry is the best thing I can do. The weight I carry is the best thing I can do is win." The next headline in today's sports section reads, "Thunder's quest to repeat is unfolding," by Lorenzo Reyes. The NBA postseason is here, starting with the play-in tournament that began April 14th, and then the official start of the playoffs April 18th, 20th. On April 18th, 20 teams will have the chance to advance all the way to the NBA Finals. The path won't be easy. The NBA postseason tends to span about 2 months, and multiple 7-game series can take a toll on the bodies and minds of players, almost as if playoffs were a mini-season. All of which means there are plenty of storylines and narratives to parse through ahead of the games. Here are the 6 biggest questions headed into the 2025-26 postseason. Can the Thunder repeat as NBA Finals champions? Winning a title changes a team. For one, the organization knows what it takes to get there. For another, it creates internal and external pressures. The Oklahoma City Thunder may feel like they need to live up to their promise of championship-level play, and other teams will view them as the established entity that needs to be upended. The Thunder are indeed built to repeat. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the likely NBA MVP, is the most consistent star in the league. Jalen Williams has returned to form from his hamstring injury. Chet Holmgren has been a solid defensive presence. And the Thunder are deep and talented, creating matchup issues all over the floor. Championship teams typically get significant contributions from role players. Who might those be? Think players like Alex Caruso and Luguentz Dort last season for the Thunder, or Sam Hauser for the Boston Celtics the year before. Which players are going to step up this postseason to elevate great teams to championship contention, particularly in the clutch or in high-leverage situations? Possible candidates include Keldon Johnson, Spurs, Baylor Shireman, Celtics, Julian Strawther, Nuggets, Mitchell Robinson, Knicks, Keon Ellis, Cavaliers, and Terry Eason, Rockets. Will the Lakers linger around long enough to get healthy? NBA leading cover Luka Doncic is set to rejoin the Los Angeles Lakers on April 17th from his trip to Spain for treatment on his grade 2 hamstring injury. Still, it's uncertain when he'll be cleared to return to play. Austin Reeves' oblique strain is expected to be out until about mid-May. That timeline puts Los Angeles squarely in the second round. The Lakers, however, will have to contend with a very solid Houston Rockets team in the first round, a team that finished the season 9-1 in their last 10 games. Doncic and Reeves were the highest-scoring duo in the NBA this season. Without them, the Lakers will be nowhere near as dangerous. It's going to be tough for them to topple Houston without Doncic and Reeves. Will the Knicks finally get over the hump? Last season, the New York Knicks reached their first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 seasons. The Knicks fired former coach Tom Thibodeau and sent the message that only acceptable outcome moving forward with this current roster build was a title. That puts an immense amount of pressure on Coach Mike Brown and the Knicks players. Of all the playoff squads, this is the one with the most continuity among its players, many of whom go back to their college days. That stability and familiarity can go a long way in the playoffs, but the Knicks will need to avoid cold spells and will have to amplify their defensive intensity if they are to win their first NBA Finals since 1973. Can any under-the-radar team make a deep run? Mostly because of his struggles to get out of the second round of the playoffs, Donovan Mitchell and the Cavaliers often get overlooked as a viable threat in the East. The Minnesota Timberwolves have made consecutive appearances in the Western Conference Finals, but with the strength of the Thunder, Spurs, and Nuggets, Minnesota is a modest long shot. The Hawks posted the best winning percentage in the East after the All-Star break, .769, but are a young, untested team. Can any of them get hot at the right time and challenge the balance of power? Can any play-in tournament team break through? In a vacuum, the LA Clippers appear to be the team in best position to make noise in the playoffs. They can compete with the best teams out west as well, as long as Kawhi Leonard is healthy, and the trade for Benedict Mathurin was an underrated move that infused scoring off the bench. But if LA emerges from the play-in tournament, it will face the defending champion Thunder in the first round, a tall task. Out east, it might be the surprising Hornets, who posted the best net rating in the East, 11.1, after the All-Star break. Charlotte, which played in the 9-10 elimination game April 14th, can shoot the ball and plays with pace and offensive ingenuity. The Hornets, though, would get the number one Pistons. Cade Cunningham is still making his way back from a collapsed lung injury, so there is some weakness in Detroit's case. Further down the page, under the WNBA Draft Winners and Losers banner, the headline reads, UCLA goes 6 deep after FUD taken number 1, by Cindy Henderson, Mitchell Northam, Megan L. Hall, and Heather Burns. Dateline is New York. The 2026 WNBA draft looks like it would have some surprises, but as it turned out, Azzi Fudd, who was predicted to be the top pick going into the college season, was indeed selected number 1 overall by the Dallas Wings on April 13th. She will be reunited with UConn teammate Paige Bueckers. UCLA had a record 6 players from their national title team drafted, including Angela Dugalic, Gabriela Jacquez, Gianna Neepkins, Charlize Lager-Walker, and Kiki Rice. Notre Dame had 5 players drafted in the top 20 in 2019. The 2023 South Carolina Gamecocks and the 2008 Tennessee Volunteers also had 5 players drafted in a single year, but not in the first round. In all, 45 players had their names called. Here are the winners and losers of the WNBA draft. 2026 draft winners, Dallas Wings. No one is probably more relieved the WNBA draft is over than the Wings. Picking Azzi Fudd number 1 overall has to feel like a sigh of relief and happiness all at the same time. Fudd is a dynamic talent whom Dallas can pair with Paige Bueckers and Arike Ogunbowale to form a 3-guard attack that should be hard to defend. The UConn product brings her stellar shooting and off-ball movement to a franchise that has sorely missed that in recent seasons. Corey Close and UCLA. The Bruins set a WNBA draft record by having 5 players selected in the first round. Led by Lauren Betts, going 4th overall to the Washington Mystics. Beginning with Betts, UCLA had players taken back-to-back, with Gabriela Jacquez going 5th to the Chicago Sky and Kiki Rice going 6th to the Toronto Tempo. Angela Dugalic will join Betts in Washington as she was drafted 9th overall, while Gianna Neepkins was taken 15th overall by the Connecticut Sun. A 6th UCLA player, Charlize Lager-Walker, was taken in the second round by the Sun. With the transfer portal still open and her top 6 scorers to replace, UCLA head coach Corey Close can sell to recruits the fact that she can develop WNBA prospects. Duke's Tina Meyer. Tina Meyer wasn't projected to go in the first round on many draft boards, but the Duke guard player played her way into the number 14 pick by way of a sensational performance in an NCAA tournament. Meyer scored 43 total points across Duke's Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games against LSU and UCLA, respectively. Meyer is the first Blue Devil selected in the first round since 2018, when Lexi Brown was taken 9th overall by the Connecticut Sun. Dawn Staley and South Carolina. South Carolina ended its season with an ugly loss to UCLA in the national championship game, but Dawn Staley's program officially turned the page with a great showing at the 2026 WNBA draft. Staley had 3 players selected in the draft, led by Raven Johnson going to the Indiana Fever with the number 10 overall pick. 2026 draft losers. Teams allowing the Las Vegas Aces to draft Janiah Barker. The Las Vegas Aces always managed to pull off a head-turning move without many draft picks. They did it again this year by drafting Janiah Barker late in the second round and a good value at number 29. The new Aces rookie gets the chance to learn from a gaggle of veterans who have won at the highest level in nearly every possible way, something many in their first year don't get the chance to experience. The Tennessee forward, already a solid blend of size and skill that make her hard to defend when she's in rhythm, and now she'll have a chance to be coached by Becky Hammon, which can help refine her skills. Pencil Barker in on the way too early All-WNBA rookie team. Pencil Barker in on the way too early All-WNBA rookie team. South Carolina's Tania Latson. Latson transferred to South Carolina from Florida State to boost her WNBA draft stock and be part of something bigger. It seemed like she would accomplish both of those goals as the Gamecocks reached the national title game, and Latson was widely projected to be a first-round pick. But of the 15 prospects invited to attend the WNBA draft, Latson had to wait the longest. She was finally taken off the board by the Los Angeles Sparks, who grabbed her in the second round with the 20th overall pick. Latson will get the chance to make an impact in LA as she joins a Sparks team equipped with Kelsey Plum, but otherwise needs backcourt depth. On the second page of today's sports section, the top headline reads, "Photos a Blow to Women Fighting Stereotypes." You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 17 minutes past the hour. This article is by Nancy Armour. No matter what the New York Times' internal investigation of NFL reporter Diana Russini finds, the damage is already done. Russini has given new fire to the infuriating trope that women in sports are only here to hook up with athletes. Even if they turn out to be innocent, the photos of Russini and New England Patriots coach Mike Vrabel hugging and socializing at a resort in Arizona cast a cloud of suspicion on the interactions every woman reporter or broadcaster has with athletes, coaches, and front office personnel. Are we being friendly because we're cultivating a professional relationship, or do we have other, more salacious motives? Are we asking for a phone number or email because building sources is part of our job, or because we want to hit you up on the side? It's not fair, but it's the reality. Russini made it harder for every single woman in sports, regardless of what we cover, to do our jobs. By risking her own credibility, she's put ours in jeopardy too. And there's a picture of Diana Russini interviewing Viking safety Harrison Smith at his December 25th game. Vrabel and Russini have both denied any wrongdoing, and Patriots Executive Vice President of Player Personnel Elliot Wolf said April 13th that it's been business as usual for the coach. Russini is on leave, however, pending the internal investigation at the Athletic. That's not surprising, given it's problematic for any journalist to be too friendly with someone you're covering. It is particularly problematic when women have fought for decades to be seen and respected like their male colleagues. The environment for women in sports media is far different than it was in 1978, when a federal court ordered Major League Baseball to open its clubhouses to Melissa Ludke, then a reporter for Sports Illustrated. There are now women covering every sport at every level, and it's a rarity to go to a game or event and find you're the only woman there. Women are sports editors and columnists at the largest and smallest publications. Maria Taylor and Rebecca Lowe have two of the most high-profile jobs at any of the sports network. Candace Parker calls NBA and NCAA men's basketball games. And the occasional Cam Newton aside, women reporters are rarely subjected to the outright hostility and condescension that was once common in our workplaces. Our emails and social media accounts remain a different story. That does not mean we are on equal footing, however. Rossini, Vrabel, sexist assumptions, and double standards. We are still asked, the suspicion sometimes obvious, why we got into sports journalism. The answer is simple, for the same reasons our male colleagues did. We love sports. We played them. We grew up going to and watching games with our fathers or mothers or grandparents. Even if we weren't getting paid to do so, we'd be watching games and talking about sports. But we are also keenly aware that sexist assumptions and double standards linger in every male-dominated industry, and most of us go out of our way to avoid doing anything that could fuel them. Every woman in sports journalism I know has had conversations about how to build relationships with the people we cover in a way that makes it abundantly clear that we have no interest in anything else. How do you ask for a phone number? Can you get drinks alone with a coach or GM if it's in a public space? Does it have to be with a group of reporters? How can you have repeated conversations with the same athlete without raising eyebrows? If an athlete or coach or front office person is pushing boundaries, what's the best exit strategy without burning bridges? These are not questions our male colleagues have to ask, mind you. Just as I doubt most men in sports give themselves the once-over before leaving for a game or an event to make sure what we're wearing doesn't send the wrong message or match the colors of a team we're covering. Quote, I think a lot of times my female colleagues get questioned in ways when they're seen with the guys out in ways that I do not get questioned. And I think a lot of that is totally unfair. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, another NFL insider, said April 10th during a segment on Toucher and Hardy in Boston. And if this is what it looks like, then this is really bad for all women who are doing it on the level. Yes, it is. These are not the 1970s or even the 1990s. Women in sports media have fought too hard and for too long to be treated the same as our male counterparts. The last thing any of us need is one of our own taking us backwards. The next headline on this second page is Ex-Cardinals coach dies, Ex-Cardinals coach McGinnis dead at 74, by Michael Middlehurst Schwartz. Former Arizona Cardinals head coach and Tennessee Titans color commentator Dave McGinnis died April 13th, the Titans announced. He was 74. McGinnis, who spent 31 years coaching in the NFL, had been hospitalized since March per the Titans. The Athletic reported that he died of renal failure. An assistant coach for nearly a decade for the Chicago Bears, McGinnis broke through to the head coaching ranks during the 2000 season when he took over as interim coach after Vince Tobin's midseason firing. He was given the full-time job after the season and would remain in the role through the 2023 season when he was fired after a 4-12 campaign. McGinnis finished with a 17-40 record. Quote, we are deeply saddened to learn of Dave McGinnis's passing and extend our heartfelt condolences to all who knew and loved him, Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell said in a statement. As Dave often said, he was a ball coach through and through, and no one ever filled that role with more passion, enthusiasm, and charisma. Coach Mack truly loved the game and everything and everyone associated with it, especially his players. He was one of a kind and will be greatly missed. In January 1999, McGinnis found himself at the center of one of the stranger chapters of NFL coaching searches. Then the Cardinals' defensive coordinator, he interviewed for the Bears' head coaching role after the team fired Dave Wannstedt. Chicago announced McGinnis had been hired before a contract was finalized, taking him by surprise. One day later, McGinnis withdrew from consideration, saying, "It did not feel right in my gut." After his firing by the Cardinals, McGinnis joined Jeff Fisher's staff on the Titans as linebackers coach from 2004 to 2011. He would follow Fisher to the St. Louis/Los Angeles Rams as assistant head coach from 2012 to 2016. Quote, the lives he touched and the number of people that cared about him, it's really amazing, Fisher said in a statement to the Titans. Mack treated people so well and made everyone feel like they were important. Even in the hospital, people would stop by to see him, and he would ask about their families, their grandkids, even when he could barely speak. He made a big impact on so many people. Everyone loved Mac. Following that season, he began his broadcast career for Titans Radio. The next headline on this page reads, Dick Vitale announces new melanoma diagnosis. And there's a picture of Dick Vitale greeting the rest of the ESPN broadcasting table during the first half of a game, February 1st. Article by John Liuzzi. Dick Vitale's latest biopsy has brought bad news. In a statement shared by ESPN's PR account on X, formerly Twitter, the legendary college basketball analyst announced on April 13th that results from his biopsy last week confirmed a diagnosis of melanoma in both his lung and liver cavity. I've beaten melanoma, I've beaten lymphoma, I've beaten vocal cord cancer, I've beaten lymph node cancer. I'm 4 for 4, and I'm fully confident I'm going to make it 5 for 5, Vitale wrote in a statement. Vitale said he'd soon be starting immunotherapy treatment and plans on winning this latest health battle. He has also said he is feeling fantastic amid the diagnosis. Last week, Vitale shared that he had a biopsy at a hospital in Sarasota, Florida, to look into some of the abnormalities that his doctors found on a series of recent routine tests, which included a PET scan, a CAT scan, and 2 MRIs. He shared in a social media post late night, April 12th, that he hasn't been able to sleep recently. He's been so worried about the report, adding that his PET scan last week shocked him. Vitale has had multiple health issues, including several types of cancer over the last few years. He was declared cancer-free last year and made his return to broadcasting, most recently in the NCAA First Four game between Texas and NC State. Quote, I'm truly overwhelmed by the love, support, prayers, and messages I've received from so many people, Vitale said in his latest statement. Moving on to the third page, the first headline reads, Rockets climb higher in top 10 by Lorenzo Reyes. The 2025-26 NBA regular season has come to an end, and the playoff bracket is officially set. 16 teams, 20 counting those participating in the play-in tournament, have the chance to make their pushes in the postseason with the hopes of an NBA title up for grabs. The final week of the season saw teams jostling for seeding as they tried to improve their path forward. The end of the regular season also meant the 10 teams that were officially eliminated from postseason contention can formally plan for the draft. Here are the final USA Today Sports NBA Power Rankings of 2025-2026 regular season. Records through April 12th. Parentheses show movement from the last week's rankings. Top 10. Number 1, Oklahoma City Thunder, 64-18. Number 2, San Antonio Spurs, 62-20. Number 3, Detroit Pistons, 16-22. Number 4, Boston Celtics, 56-26. Number 5, Denver Nuggets, 54-28. Number 6, New York Knicks, 53-29. Number 7, Houston Rockets, 52-30. Number 8, Cleveland Cavaliers, 52-30. Number 9, Los Angeles Lakers, 53-29. Number 10, Minnesota Timberwolves, 49-33. There wasn't very much movement in this group as teams at the top of the Eastern and Western conferences more or less bunkered in. The Spurs got some good news with Victor Wembanyama's rib injury, and the days off before the start of the postseason should provide invaluable rest. Two teams out west, however, that finished the season strong were the Nuggets, who ended the campaign on a 12-game winning streak, including a victory over San Antonio to preserve the number 3 seed, and the Rockets. Houston went 9-1 over its last 10, and now has a first-round matchup against the Lakers, who could be in trouble with the extended absences of NBA leading scorer Luka Doncic and hamstring and Austin Reeves oblique strain. Numbers 11 through 20. 11, Phoenix Suns, 45-37. 12, Toronto Raptors, 46-36. 13, Atlanta Hawks, 46-36. 14, Philadelphia 76ers, 45-37. 15, Charlotte Hornets, 44-38. 16, Los Angeles Clippers, 42-40. 17, Orlando Magic, 45-37. 18, Portland Trail Blazers, 42-40. 19, Miami Heat, 43-39. And number 20, 37, and Golden State Warriors, 37-45. Composed mostly of teams in the play-in tournament, this group will need to prove their worth by advancing in that bracket and then battling against the number 1 and 2 seeds in the two conferences. One of the teams in the play-in that finished strong was the Trailblazers, winners of 10 of their last 14 games. On the opposite end were the Magic, who inexplicably lost to a Celtics team that was sitting its top 7 players in their rotation. As a result, the Magic dropped to the number 8 seed and had to travel to Philadelphia for their matchup in the play-in against the 76ers. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes past the hour. Numbers 21 through 30. 21, Milwaukee Bucks, 32-50. 22, Chicago Bulls, 31-51. 23, Dallas Mavericks, 26-56. 24, New Orleans Pelicans, 26-56. 25, Memphis Grizzlies, 25-57. 26, Sacramento Kings, 22-60. 27, Utah Jazz, 22-60. 28, Brooklyn Nets, 20-62. 29, Indiana Pacers, 19-63. And number 30, Washington Wizards, 17-65. The season of tanking has mercifully ended, and now the lottery awaits. Practically all teams in this section of the list were playing for draft positioning, with the exception of the Pelicans, who don't own their first-round selection. Yet the biggest news out of this group is Doc Rivers stepping down as the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. This raises questions about the future of Giannis Antetokounmpo and whether the team can salvage its relationship with the star. Whom the Bucks eventually hire could be an indicator whether Antetokounmpo is put on the trading block this offseason. The next headline falls under the opinion banner and reads, Warriors Acting Like They'll Tank Play-In by Robert Ziglinski. The Golden State Warriors are in a pickle that I do not envy. Come next year, Steph Curry will begin his age 39 season, and aging Jimmy Butler might still be recovering from a torn ACL. Try as he might to stem the tides of Father Time, and older Draymond Green will probably lose another meaningful step too. That is, if he'll even be on the Warriors moving forward. He has a player option this summer. All of this would be okay if the Warriors had any young players worthy of becoming a franchise core player in the near future, but they do not even close. As it stands, they don't have much financial flexibility either, as their current roster, barring any changes, is set to be the most expensive in the NBA next season. The math here is simple. Unless the Warriors do something drastic and get hit with a random fit of remarkable luck this coming summer, the Steph Curry era is going to end with a whimper. Rest assured, they know it, too. That's why it kind of seems like Golden State is prepared to halfway tank its number 9 versus number 10 play-in game against the Los Angeles Clippers on April 15th, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Prime Video. How else do you explain Steve Kerr claiming that Curry, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis will all be on a minute restriction? It's a do-or-die game. The Warriors' season is over if they lose. There is no more basketball if they fall short. So what are we talking about here? I don't know about you, but saying this out loud tells me Golden State appears okay with losing in the play-in and getting a ticket, no matter how long the odds are in the draft lottery. Think about it. If the Warriors cared about making it through the play-in to get to the playoffs, there wouldn't be a discussion about a minute restriction. I don't care about any recent injuries or the age factor. Curry and friends would be emptying the clip without hesitation if they actually wanted to make this noise this spring, full stop. By entertaining this minute restriction in public, the Warriors are making their designs clear. For one, they clearly don't think they're capable of making a run, even if they do make it through the play-in. It's been that kind of trying season. For the other, it's apparent they'd rather take the unlikely shot at winning a chance to draft a potential game-changing prospect in June rather than try their extremely unrealistic hand at pushing someone in a playoff series. So why pull out all of the stops for the play-in when you can subtly tank it? I think the Clippers will probably win straight up regardless, but why take your chances if you're the Warriors? Honestly, I think their math adds up. Unless something crazy happens, there's no sensible way these Warriors could even take a game off the Oklahoma City Thunder. Even if they did, they'd still be in the same bleak place for the near future. They likely and quite literally have a better chance at winning the lottery, which is a funny thing to say out loud. The Warriors don't really want to make the playoffs because they're down so bad. They need a draft miracle. I don't blame them one bit for making this calculation. Don't take Nuggets center Nikola Jokic off for granted. Do not lose sight of Denver Nuggets center Nikola Jokic's latest accomplishment. Before this season, no one in recorded NBA history had ever finished a campaign as the leading rebounder and assister. Shoot, no one had even done that in separate seasons, let alone in one altogether. But Jokic, a listed 6'11", 284-pound human being, just did, all at once. I say this because we cannot be numb to this achievement. We have decades of basketball evidence to suggest a top rebounder, usually some giant with slow feet, will not also be such an incredible passer, and vice versa. Basketball players are not supposed to be elite at both very different skill sets, but that's how it works. But that's not how it works. But Jokic makes it work. He is the NBA's best passer and its top rebounder at the same time. He will probably do this at least one more time before he hangs his sneakers up. How absurd. Don't start taking Jokic, the definition of a basketball unicorn, for granted. The next headline on this page 3 of the sports section reads, Refined College Targeting Rule is More Player-Friendly by John Bryce. The NCAA's recent spate of college football rules changes have ranged from mundane, a proposal to thwart leg covering failed, to controversial, to downright spooky, ghost transfers. Perhaps of most noteworthy this fall is a one-year trial run with changes to the sport's targeting penalties. Passed March 19th by the NCAA's Division I Football Bowl Subdivision Oversight Committee, an initial targeting penalty in the coming 2026 season does not require a player to miss time in his team's subsequent game. The previous iteration of the targeting rule required a player who was ejected for the foul in the second half of a contest to miss the first half of his team's following game. It even could carry over from one season to the next year. However, NCAA officials and representatives from member schools studied changes to the game from previous modifications to the rule and learned no player during the 2025 season was flagged for 3 targeting penalties. Overall, the NCAA said, the penalty also has declined in frequency. Quote, I believe the discussion had been for a while the severity of this penalty, and we think the rule has demonstrated the game has really responded. Greg Burks, the Big 12's coordinator of officials, told USA Today Sports, the number of targeting penalties has gone down. The plays we saw, the headhunting we saw in the past, you just don't see that anymore. The safety factor was driving the rule and was the impetus, and that kind of has come to fruition, end quote. The NCAA's National Coordinator of Officials, longtime SEC referee and officiating head Steve Shaw, shared with the group the results of the study that showed only a very few players received multiple targeting penalties during the 2025 season. The Big 12, Burks noted, did not have a single player whistled twice for the foul. If the trend line reverses direction with these rules modifications and more players become multiple-time offenders, mandatory suspension remains in the rulebook. A player would be required to sit out the first half of the team's next game, regardless of when the penalty occurred. Quote, Part 1 of this rule is if we do have a second occurrence, the original penalty comes into effect. The third requires sitting out a full game. The most severe penalty in sports is not being able to participate. As the Big 12 seeks to further enhance its football officiating, the league is drilling down on its first-of-its-kind partnership with the NFL. The NFL, for the first time, invited Big 12 representatives to sit in on the NFL's competition and rules meeting during the annual NFL Scouting Combine held earlier this year in Indianapolis. Quote, They have put a lot of resources into their officiating program. How they make their rules is really important, Big 12 Chief Football and Competition Officer Scott Draper told USA Today Sports. That's something I'm focused on for college football. They spend a lot of time vetting rules changes so that when we get to the final stage, they've already gone through a lot of the necessary conversations. That's one aspect that globally for college football I want us to learn from. With the NFL partnership, an ideal scenario for the conference, according to Draper, would be to elevate officials' performances to a level that it might be difficult to retain them. Quote, the accountability, training, recruitment measures collectively working together with the NFL and the Big 12 to really address not just Big 12 officiating staff, said Draper, a former Michigan director of football operations and athletic administrator, but recruiting younger and replacement officials going forward. The goal is to build a pipeline for young officials to get into college officiating and maybe a pipeline to the NFL. This is a long-term process, something we're reviewing for more than 1 year. On the following page, the next headline reads, Texans reiterate belief in QB C.J. Stroud by Tyler Dragon. C.J. Stroud might be under the most pressure of his career entering his 4th NFL season, but the Houston Texans have shown strong support for their starting quarterback. While speaking to reporters on April 13th, Texans general manager Nick Caserio doubled down on the team's decision to exercise the 2027 fifth-year option for Stroud. Quote, he's our quarterback. We've said that from the beginning. I think that's really more of a procedural thing, Caserio said. It was kind of a no-brainer. Glad he's here. It's more part of the process. The Texans picked up the fifth-year option for both of their 2023 first-round picks, defensive end Will Anderson Jr. and Stroud, last week. Houston's decision to exercise Anderson's fifth-year option was a no-brainer. The defensive end won the 2023 NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year award. He's a two-time Pro Bowler, and he was named a 2025 first-team All-Pro. The team's choice to pick up Stroud's fifth-year option was expected, but it was not as much of a slam dunk. Stroud's production has slipped after a record-setting rookie campaign during which he recorded the third most passing yards by a rookie in NFL history and was named Offensive Rookie of the Year. His career single-season highs in passing yards, 4,108, touchdowns, 23, and passer rating, 100.8, all occurred during his 2023 rookie campaign. Stroud finished 19th in passing yards, 3,041, and tied for 21st in touchdown passes, 19, in the 2025 regular season. He then struggled mightily in the playoffs, tossing 5 interceptions in 2 games, including 4 picks in Houston's divisional round loss to the New England Patriots. Texans coach DeMeco Ryans said, CJ's our guy, following Stroud's nightmare postseason performance, and has continued to reaffirm his confidence in the quarterback this offseason. Even though the Texans have Anderson and Stroud secured through the 2027 season, both players are eligible for long-term extensions. Anderson's extension presumably will happen first because he's had the better and more consistent start to his NFL career. The Texans could wait to see how Stroud performs this season before they make a determination about their multiple-year deal. Stroud has reportedly worked hard this offseason in preparation for what figures to be a very important year for the quarterback. Quote, we're excited about his offseason. I think he's had a good approach and a good attitude here. He's put a lot of work in from March and April, Caserio said. Excited to have him around here this spring and excited to keep moving forward. The next headline reads, Fudd, the 7th UConn Husky to be won in the WNBA. And there's a picture of guard Ozzie Fudd finishing her UConn career with a 14.7 points per average over 115 games by Heather Burns. Dateline is New York. After all the drama surrounding the WNBA draft's top pick, we ended up exactly as many predicted before the college season began. UConn All-American Ozzie Fudd was indeed the number 1 overall selection in the WNBA draft on April 13th at the Shed at Hudson Yards. She is the 7th UConn player to be picked number 1, joining Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Tina Charles, Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, and Dallas Wings teammate Paige Bookers. I'm excited to play again with Paige. I mean, she's an incredible person, incredible player, and it's going to be a lot of fun, Fudd said to ESPN's Holly Rowe after she was drafted. Bookers is sitting in the crowd with the entire UConn team. Fudd said she appreciated all the support from her teammates and family. The 5'11" shooting guard helped UConn win 54 straight games the last 2 seasons, including the 2025 National Championship game, where she was named Most Outstanding Player. The Huskies' streak was stopped in this season's national semifinals when they were upset by South Carolina. Quote, "Not how we wanted to end our season, but I think the biggest takeaway was how incredible my 5 years have been," Fudd said when asked about UConn. Being able to learn from that, being able to take all those experiences, the wins, the losses, the hard practices, the everything, the good, the bad, you can grow from that. All those habits, that championship, that winning mentality, I've been able to bring those with me. Fudd averaged 14.7 points while shooting 42.2% from a three-point range in the 4 years at UConn. This season, she averaged 17.3 points and 3.1 assists per game. Fudd finished her career with the top free throw percentage in UConn history, 92.5%. Quote, "Every single thing we did was with discipline, with intensity," Fudd said of what she learned with the Huskies. "We did it the right way. That winning mentality, that culture, that we mindset, being able to read your defender, learning tendencies to be to the offensive player, but not being so confined and being able to just play." End quote. Fudd was a first-team All-American and finalist for both the Wooden Award and the Naismith Trophy. She was also named first-team All-Big East the last 2 seasons. Fudd can score in bunches, as she did with 34 points, including 8 three-pointers against Syracuse in the NCAA tournament in March. The number 1 recruit nationally in the 2021 class, Fudd has suffered several injuries over the course of her career. April 2019, Fudd tore her ACL and MCL at the U.S. Under-18 3-on-3 Championships. As a freshman at UConn 2021-2022, Fudd missed 11 games due to a foot injury. As a sophomore at UConn 22-23 season, Fudd missed 22 games due to a knee injury she suffered in a December game against Notre Dame when a teammate fell on her knee. As a junior 2023-24 season, Fudd tore her ACL and medial meniscus in her right knee in a practice in November. The non-contact injury limited her to 2 games. When asked about becoming a professional basketball player, Fudd enumerated all the things she's looking forward to in the next chapter. "I feel like I can't pinpoint one thing," Fudd said. "There's endless opportunity in front of me. Whatever happens next, wherever I end up, I'm just excited to be in a new city, to learn from the players around me, to get to play with these incredible players, to learn from the coach. I'm excited for everything." The next headline reads, "Commissioner has little to say about her future," by Megan L. Hall. Dateline is New York. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert addressed a litany of subjects ahead of the draft, including the future of her job. An hour before the top prospects in college women's basketball were set to walk on the stage April 13th at the Shed, Engelbert gave her annual pre-draft press conference, where she spoke about off-season activities such as new collective bargaining agreement, expansion teams, and the league's growth. However, a question about her future seemed to bother the commissioner, who ultimately sidestepped the inquiry before pondering if it would have been asked of a man. Engelbert eventually said there was nothing else to report and denied there would be any story about her future. "I do crack up how everybody's focused on me, and you should be focused on the hundreds of amazing women and thousands of women who run this league outside of myself," Engelbert said. "I appreciate that you're focused on me as well. I wonder if you would ask that of a man, by the way, but I realize as women, we get asked different questions than men do." The commissioner did not answer other questions about the state of the league, the CBA, and lessons learned from the process. Here are some key takeaways from Engelbert's press conference. Engelbert admits housing was a surprise sticking point during CBA negotiations. Housing became a sticking point during the Marathon CBA negotiations ahead of the 2026 season. However, Engelbert appeared surprised by a strong push from players to continue housing. The league has provided housing since the first CBA in 1999. Quote, I didn't know how important and emotional it was for them because I just assume, having 2 children in their 20s, that, pay for their own housing, that once they were making these much increased salaries, that wasn't something they would need or want. But they made it very clear it was very important to them, Engelbert said. Engelbert says league players learned lessons in bargaining. Engelbert says when the next CBA rolls around in 2032, the league and players will likely approach things differently. The commissioner noted the process could be reviewed ahead of negotiations to make things easier, and Engelbert wouldn't recommend marathon negotiations to get the deal over the line. However, she says that she's pleased with the outcome. Quote, the interesting thing is we all wanted the same thing for the players, so we all had our list. They all matched, Engelbert said. Ultimately, we wanted to kind of strike this great balance between significant increases in players' salaries and benefits with the economic sustainability of the league, because women's sports is very fragile and can be very fragile. We wanted to make sure we were setting the league up not just for the next 6-7 years under the CBA, but for the next CBA. Moving on to the life section of today's USA Today, the lead headline reads, Hacks co-stars brace for final bow by Aaron Jensen. And there's a picture of Jean Smart and Heine Einbinder wrapping up their run on Hacks after 5 seasons. Little Debbies, prepare yourselves for Deborah Vance's final bow. Hacks inches closer to the end of its HBO Max residency now that it has launched its 5th and final season, Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. The emotions ran high while filming the season, Hannah Einbinder says, seated beside her co-star Jean Smart. Quote, we had this awareness that we were making it, says Einbinder, 30, daughter of original Saturday Night Live cast member Lorraine Newman. It was like a clock ticking down. Smart, 74, agrees. Like one of those things where the bomb's going to go off. The series premiered in 2021 with Ava Daniels, Einbinder, a culturally aware yet entitled writer helping outdated comedian Deborah Vance, Smart, reclaim her career. An intergenerational duo has kept fans hooked with their surefire wits and complicated relationship that both hurts and heals. In season 4, Deborah walked away from her dream job as a late-night talk show host because menacing CEO Bob Lipka, Tony Goldwyn, wanted to fire Ava from the writing staff. While filming the final season, the actors walked away with mementos. Quote, that's the first time it really became real when they said, okay, that's a wrap on Deborah's bedroom, says Smart, who tried to take a little souvenir from the sets. Einbinder nabbed all of Ava's wardrobes, she says, and was hit with a wave of full-body nausea on the last day of filming. I became ill, like the second I walked out of where we were shooting, and I was doubled over. My body was shutting down, Einbinder said. I got in the car. I was just trying not to throw up. Literally, it was so severe and intense. And I got back to the hotel and passed out for like 14 hours. It marked the end of working with a TV legend whose meritorious qualities continue to mount off-camera. Jean is such a loving, caring person who really does cherish the people around her, and we all get to feel that warmth, Einbinder says. Smart admires how welcoming Einbinder makes the set for extras. She makes friends with everybody, Smart says. You could name any crew member on our show, and she can tell you personal things about them. She's the kind of person who you could always lean on her. She'll always tell you the truth. This season, Deborah continues her fight to create an impressive legacy and even falls into a May-December romance. Christopher Briney, a.k.a. Conrad, to The Summer I Turned Pretty fans, plays a musician who takes a liking to Deborah. Backstage at January's Golden Globes, after winning her 3rd statuette for Best Performance by a Female Actor in a Television Series, musical or comedy for Hacks, Smart recalled how, when she first moved to Los Angeles, someone told her that in real life, the average age difference between a husband and a wife is about 2 years, but on screen, it's 20. Well, of course, when it comes to me, then it's not an issue, Smart jokes in the interview. When I get to kiss a cute young guy, that part of it doesn't come into play. Series co-creator Paul W. Downs, who also plays Deborah and Ava's manager, Jimmy, says, "We always want to upend the stereotype or upend the norm, and we thought it was progressive and cool to show someone Deborah's age dating someone younger." Downs remembers when Briney, 28, read for the role. We were like, "Who's that? He's amazing. He was just so good, so charismatic, so funny. He is an absolute star." Quote, "I think normally someone who is the lead of a huge show would be like, I'm not going to audition for this guest part," adds Downs, 43. "I think it's cool when you're like, oh no, I want to do that. That's fun. I like that show. I think that speaks to his character as a person." Next on the front page of the Life section is a list of celebrities who are celebrating their birthdays today. Singer-guitarist Dave Edmunds turns 82. Actor Sam McMurray turns 74. Emma Thompson is 67. Singer Samantha Fox is 60. Guitarist Ed O'Brien from Radiohead is 58. Actor Danny Pino is 52. Singer Chris Stapleton is 48. Actor Luke Evans is 47. Comedian actor Seth Rogen is 44. Actor Alice Braga is 43. Singer Margot Price is 43. Actor Samira Wiley, 39. Actor Emma Watson is 36. And actor Maisie Williams is 29. And above that, under the star's best quotes, is a quote from Sabrina Carpenter. Quote, "My reaction was pure confusion, sarcasm, and not ill-intended. Could have handled it better." Sabrina Carpenter apologized on X after being criticized for her reaction to Zagruta, an Arabic call of celebration in the crowd during her April 10 performance at Coachella. "I don't like it," the Espresso singer, 26, said from the stage when a fan shouted back that, "It's my culture." Carpenter asked, "That's your culture, is yodeling?" She added, "This is weird." In her apology, the pop star said she welcomes all cheers and yodels from here on out. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. We read from the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been David Frothingham.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 5 of Twice by Mitch Albom. Following that, at 3 o'clock, it's Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of the Buffalo News. Stay with us. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.